Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I am your host, Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of Western North Carolina. I'm really excited about the shifts that are happening and this coming of Sat Yuga. I realize that, probably to most people, even listeners, it's just hard to even accept it. It's like it all of a sudden it sounds like pretty far out, woo-woo UFO type stuff. But it's not. And there's a physics to it. And there's a rhythm to nature. And if you can take a step back and feel into the rhythm of what's going on globally, you can start to see that the clouds are parting and things are happening now in a positive direction. Now, one problem with that is that right now, if in the United States, certainly everything's so polarized. You're either pro-Trump or anti-Trump, and of course the pro-Trumpers. I mean, they're even using the phrase "golden age." I know I was. A close friend of mine, dear friend of mine from ashram days and stuff, is really into. He was a never Trumper, and this was before the election. And so I just said to him, one thing that we can say is that this golden age is coming, and it's going to start to emerge, as I said in the previous podcast, and we're going to see it within about 6 months. I think the signs will be there that, yeah, for sure, it's happening. And so I told him that it doesn't matter who wins the election, that it is going to happen. It'll affect the nature of the transition, be it seamless and smooth, or be it, the worst case scenario in Armageddon. But it is going to happen. There was also that Jyotishi, incredible, back in the 90s, who said that this was before Trump was even, I think, before anybody had an inkling at least, that Trump was going to run for president. But he said this Jyotishi predicted from the astrology that the golden age, Sat Yuga, will start to emerge when a guy with orange hair is president of the United States. And so, if you're anti-Trump, then it's going on in spite of him. If you're pro-Trump, it's going on because of him. And the bottom line is it doesn't matter, because it, in the larger sense, is that it is happening. But, we also talked about how the transition can happen seamlessly and smoothly, or it can happen through an Armageddon, a huge erase and start over kind of a thing. I don't believe that's going to happen. But it is interesting that there are bubblings, about it. People are like, they're going to start a third world war. And now they're using missiles fired from Ukraine that are they're American missiles, and they're being fired into Russia. And that, people say that could be the thing that triggers the third world war. I don't think it's going to happen, but it is frightening, and it just shows how we are right in that cusp, right in that period of transition. And I just think it's crazy to do that, especially their U.S. missiles. I mean, what are we doing? It's just nuts. I mean, that for me was like, okay, this is over the top, But it's hard to imagine what these next few years are going to be like, and what the blossoming of Sat Yuga is going to be like. I posted a few YouTube videos, and I guess they're Russian. I don't speak Russian. They could be one of those other Baltic countries or something, but I imagine they're Russian. I don't know. But it's just these young women that are singing these songs, and it's not about the songs. It's not about the language. It's not about the country they're from. It's about the feeling. And the feeling is quite beautiful. And the point is that and you can look at those videos if you like, but the feeling, michaelmamas.net, you can find them there, but it's so different, and it has like a certain tone to it, a certain tonal quality to it that really seems to be elusive to the world right now. And if you think about it, like it's almost like negativity is vogue, and it seems safer, and it seems to be a more of an empowering thing than the feeling that's contained in these videos. I used to teach about a phrase when I was teaching classes. I coined the phrase psychophysiological base note. And they said, what a psychophysiological base note is like, there are some people that put it under pressure in a stressful situation, anything. Some people just collapse down into anger. Other people, when there's, pressure and things like that, they'll collapse down into sadness. Other people fear. Different people have different psychophysiological base notes. And you see them, they do it over and over again through life. And it almost becomes like a touchstone. It's like that's what they, lack of a better way of saying it, that's what they believe in. But there's, in Sat Yuga, in this coming age, it's right around the corner, it's happening, it's unfolding. There's going to be a whole new paradigm, a whole new set of principles. And the psychophysiological base note that holds the planet isn't going to be a negative one. It's going to be a positive one. It's going to be, how do you put it into words, Scotty? It's going to be loving and kind and secure and nurturing and beautiful. And I don't know, when I listen to those YouTube videos that I posted, it just somehow seemed to allude to that feeling, to bring about, to be coming from that place. And I'm not talking about a form of denial. I'm not talking about mood making. I'm talking about a physiological reality. And right now, I've talked about, global consciousness, and the world is a fishbowl, and right now the fishbowl is polluted. And what does that do? It triggers psychophysiological base notes of negativity, fear, anger, all of that. But I mean, this is just so incredible, really, when you think about it, because when the global consciousness gets purified, when the fishbowl of consciousness, the global fishbowl of consciousness becomes clean, then the psychophysiological base note itself is going to shift. It's not going to be a negative thing. It's going to be a beautiful thing. It's going to be a wholesome thing. It's going to be something in harmony with life. And, when you watch these videos too, it speaks to the fact that it doesn't matter. And we know this, but I think it merits being said. It doesn't matter what country we're from. If we're Russian or Chinese or whatever, the people are good. The people all want the same thing. We all want a healthy, happy life. That's it. Very simple. Very simple. But it's, and like the Bob Dylan song, Masters of War, it's just these people and how they, at the top, and how they manipulate and they create world wars and they shoot missiles at each other. And granted, there are times when there are militant groups like ISIS might be a good example. And you have to rise up and you have to fight back. But where's even those terrorist type organizations? What's the root cause of those things? It's unhealthy psychophysiological base notes: anger, rage, resentment. And so if we just clear global consciousness, all that will go away and people will rest into a healthy living. And it's not about, United States is a wealthy country. There are other countries per capita that are wealthier. But there are a lot of countries, of course, that are really poor. But if there's one thing we learned, it's, money isn't the solution. I mean, yes, it can do a lot of good and all like that. But the real solution is health of the people, psychodynamic health of the people, particularly the leaders that suppress those countries, that don't do what's best for the people, but do what's best for themselves, All that can shift. The multinational companies, I think I talked about this before, but they went into like villages in India and said, we're going to help these poor people. And so they gave them refrigerators and this and that. And it ultimately ended up creating a mess. And what needed to be done isn't to try to make them all like America, but to strengthen the integrity of those cultures and the way of life there. And we started to learn, the multinational people started to learn that there's an equilibrium, there's a balance in those countries, that if they're just allowed to continue and be healthy and supported and not try to turn them into America, but if we just left them alone, but just help facilitate, there's an inner intelligence that can make all of that beautiful. And I can understand how I've been to the most poverty-stricken states in India and seen how people live in cardboard boxes and so I understand that it can be difficult to comprehend how that can be. But it is the case. And if you want to imagine, like that John Lennon song, if you want to imagine, let's imagine that. Let's not imagine that there's no heaven and no hell and nothing above us but sky or what have you. But there's a realistic understanding of cultural integrity and the equilibrium of and the balance inherent in the nature of different cultures. It's not like we want to make one homogeneous culture. It's not going to work. Laws of nature are different in different parts of the world. So these principles, so many principles of Kali Yuga, one psychophysiological base note, that's going to change completely. And it's going to happen in localized spots at first, particularly in this upcoming period of Kali Yuga. It's into Sat Yuga. It's not going to be 100% Sat Yuga. It's still Kali Yuga, but it's going to be 70, 80, maybe even in areas 90% Sat Yuga. There'll be other parts of the world that won't be experiencing that. Now, in pure Sat Yuga, it's the whole planet. But nevertheless, the predominant quality, and it will, what do they say? Rising tide raises all boats. But what's coming is just so magnificent. And we're not talking about mood making. We're not talking about denial. We're talking about a shift. When we're talking about the shift in the psychophysiological base, it's physiological. It's not an attitude. It's not a philosophy. It's not a belief system. It's a state of physiology that is dependent upon the environment, the global consciousness. We're going to come to see that. We're going to come to understand that. And then there's this idea, I was watching this thing, I forget, it was on the news or something. And oh yeah. And they were talking about a wrathful God. And is it a wrathful God? and also faith. And there's the reemergence of faith-based living. It's not about faith. It's about knowledge. It's about understanding the nature of existence, the mechanics of existence. Faith is for people that don't understand, but they just can maybe feel it in the depth of their soul, and so they just have faith. But what's even better than that, as beautiful as that is, really, the depth of everybody's soul, they can sense that. But what's even greater than that is when there's the understanding of it, the intellectual understanding of it. And we have that. That's what these podcasts are about, really. Let's take a step back, because faith without a deeper understanding sets people off in different directions. And that's why people say so many wars have been fought in the name of God, And so what do? They try to throw out the baby with the bathwater and just get rid of religion altogether. No. It's not about getting rid of religion altogether. It's about purifying it. It's having to be knowledge and faith. Knowledge and even the word faith I don't like, because faith implies blind faith. Just accept it. No. It's about the integration of that deep feeling within your soul with your understanding of the nature of life. And it can be as rigorous as a person wants to be. A great scientist, an analyst. The logical basis for the whole thing is there, and it's clear, and it's understood. And so you see, in that sense, and please hear in the context of it I'm speaking there, the religion finds its fulfillment not in faith, but in the annihilation of faith. There's no longer need to have faith, because we know we have, it is. It's not an empty longing that's not a longing that comes from an emptiness inside. The deeper we know it must be, but it's experience, it's life. That's what we have to look forward to. Now, again, it almost seems like the main common denominator in the world today is, negativity of in whatever form, fear, anger, hate, whatever the psychophysiological base notes are. And it says in the Vedic literature even, do your best to steer clear of those kinds of people. Now, you're going to have to deal with them to some extent, but don't let them bring you down, and don't collude with it. And if you're around people that everybody they talk about, oh, they're bad, this is bad, and oh, I have my friends here, but all the other people are. It's not a healthy way to live. It's unavoidable, and we all live in that environment. I do too. That's a global consciousness. So we're going to find ourselves going in that direction. And it's not about, pushing it out or fighting it so much as it's about understanding it. And understanding the alternative, which is wisdom, understanding, life in harmony. And for me, when I listen to those YouTube videos of those people singing and that, somehow, for me at least, it alludes to that. It's like, man, think how we could all live. Think how the world could be. And that's why I'm building Mount Soma. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. We're going to get this done. Because there is a technology, there is a rationale, there is an intelligence to it. And positive attracts negative. And so there's going to be a lot of naysayers out there, and they're going to attack. And believe me, they do, and they have, and they will continue to. But as the global consciousness purifies, that will fall away. So is it a wrathful God? Last subject here. It depends on what you mean by that. Because, again, God's will comes in two forms, grace and karma. And the wheels are set, the wheels are turning, the karmic wheels are turning. Karma is what it is. And, and that just cause and effect, Newtonian physics, basically. As you sow, so shall ye reap. And so if your karma is such that you're going to have a hard life, then that's what's going to happen. You're going to have to deal with that. It's like the weather. The weather is what it is, and you just have to deal with it. But if you have good karma, and we all have good and bad karma, so it's not, if somebody's having a hard time, it's not really right to say, oh boy, they must have really been a rotten person in the past. No, because it's just a question of what karma a person is incurring at this point in their life. But keep in mind, it's not just external influences. Most of our karma is between our ears and in our hearts. It's how we think, it's how we feel. And if it's a bad karma in that regard, we make a mess out of our lives. But it's still just karma, it's cause and effect. Whereas free will, grace, that's alignment with the harmony lying at the basis of nature, Mother Nature. Then it's a different thing. So people ask, there's a common thing out there that, did God intervene in that assassination attempt of Trump when they tried to shoot the guy and he turned his head at just the right minute, so it just grazed his ear? Was that God's intervention? Well, first of all, we have understanding, you see. Was it grace or was it karma? See, because karma comes in waves. It's like when you look at these pictures of planet Earth from outer space and you see these currents of clouds swirling around, and that karma is like that. And so there's group karma. There's a momentum to it. And so in one sense, we might say that it was a group karma that Trump was riding the wave of, and that's why he turned his head at the right moment. Or we could say that there was a divine intervention there. We talked about this before, but it's not really God doing it so much as God's messengers, so to speak, if you want to speak in those terms, because there are such a thing as guardian angels. And boy, if you've ever loved anybody that passed away, and they just give it a chance, allow yourself to feel what it is, you can feel them. They're still there. And so it could have been that, but then we could say, well, wait a minute, just because they're disembodied doesn't mean they're no longer subject to karma. So we could even say the divine, if you will, intervention of guardian angels is karmic. Well, you could say that. Now, there's always a degree of free will in everything. In other words, grace. And so, could it be a person's alignment with their own inner divinity that compelled them to turn their head at just the right moment? But that's not even an outside form of grace, is that you find it within yourself. And see, that's a deep subject. It talks about the profound, infinite correlation of the nature of existence. Because on a superficial level, it can be like, well, wait a minute, how can, just because the guy's living, getting some support of nature in the moment, why would that cause him to turn his head, But it is the mechanic of creation, and we need to understand the mechanic of creation. So was it karma, or was it some form of grace? Or can we say that in a larger sense, God doesn't mess around with that stuff. God set karma in action, and God is there. And again, and let's get away from the word God for those people that have trouble with that word, as unfortunate as that may be. It's there. It's a reservoir of harmony, the source of existence, which people call God, the unified field, the inner intelligence inherent in the foundation of all existence, that which birth maintains the universe. We don't ask it to come and intervene in our lives. That's not how it works. But we can tap into that. And you can tap into it as if it's outside of yourself, but more importantly, you tap into it. Where do you find it? Within your own self. You tap into it. And that's a form of prayer. Meditation is a form of prayer, arguably the highest form of prayer. And then you have the yogis and the pujas and all of that. There's a technology to it. There's a methodology to it, and it's real. If with Mount Soma building an enlightened city, it's called, the power of that modality, of that methodology is so great that it purifies global consciousness. And it's just that simple. Just that simple. So prepare yourself for the coming Sat Yuga. And do your best. I'm not saying you can't force out negativity. You can't force your physiology to go in a direction that it's not. But be open. And if you have your biases, if you have your prejudices, if you have your negativities or your judgments, it's a good time to at least reflect on it. One of the hardest things I think for a lot of people to ever do is admit that they were wrong. And so don't think of it as that you're wrong, but maybe that some of the principles that you've been hanging on to are wrong. We all have to reflect. We're all subject to global consciousness. Okay, I think that's it. Scotty, is there anything more?
Yeah, I just think, like you said, it's really important for us to really learn about ourselves and how we, our likes, our dislikes, our whatever, the patterns, learn about ourselves, because we spend so much time.
It's a beautiful thing, like Shakespeare, to thine own self be true.
Yeah.
But so what is the self on the transcendental level? It's the unified field. That's what we all are. That's the source of everything, including every individual. That's the depth of the soul. But then there's also the more superficial self, the personalities, our biases, our negativities, our Kali Yugic, if you will, psychophysiological base notes. And so self-honesty becomes a major part of that. How are we really functioning? Not to judge ourselves, but to get an insight into the nature of our dynamic so that maybe we can cultivate a healthier relationship with it. That's good, Scotty. So I guess that's it, huh, Scott?
Yeah, just if you like the video, subscribe to whatever platform, put some comments out there, share it with friends. We need to get the word out there as much as possible. So we could use everybody's help.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Scotty. That's right. Okay, everybody, thanks for listening. We'll talk again next week.